All right, let's dive in. Today, we're looking at a framework for resilience that's been around for literally centuries. And really, it all comes down to these two big ideas: divine endurance and a promised escape. So, what in the world does that actually mean for us? Let's break it down.
So let me ask you something and be honest. Have you ever felt totally and completely stuck? Cornered by a situation that just feels impossible to beat? That feeling of being totally overwhelmed, like there's just no exit sign anywhere? We've all been there. Well, it turns out there's this ancient text that offers a super concise, really powerful way to think about this exact feeling. We're going to focus on just a single verse today from 1 Corinthians 10:13, and it's basically like a piece of ancient wisdom designed specifically for this struggle.
Okay, so this verse really builds its case in three parts. First up, it tries to normalize what we go through, the hardship. Let's call this first part a common struggle.
The verse opens with this really powerful statement, and I want you to zero in on those last few words: common to mankind. See, before it gives you any kind of solution, it starts with a big dose of perspective.
Now, the word choice here is fascinating. When you and I hear temptation, we probably think of, I don't know, cheating on a diet or something small. But in this context, the word is way, way bigger. It means any major trial, any test of your character, or just a really deeply difficult situation.
So what the verse is saying right out of the gate is pretty bold. That overwhelming problem you're dealing with, that feeling that you are uniquely being crushed by life, the text says, nope, your struggle is not some weird, isolated event that's only happening to you. And this right here, this is the very first big promise from the verse. You are not alone. The fundamental nature of what you're going through is a shared human experience. And that's the first step, right? Reframing the problem from a private disaster to just a common challenge. All right, let's get to the second part. After seeing, hey, your struggle is normal, the text introduces this pretty radical idea about its limits. We're calling this section the unbreakable limit. This is the absolute heart of the promise. The text is basically saying there's a built-in ceiling to whatever you're facing. Really pay attention to that phrase, beyond what you can bear. It suggests there's a fundamental rule at play here. You can see the contrast so clearly here. On the left, that's how trial feels, like this endless, crushing weight. But on the right, that's the promise of the verse, that the weight is, by its very definition, manageable. It actually has a limit. So, let me ask you this. What's the probability that your trial is actually survivable? Well, according to this framework, it's 100%. Every single time. The argument is that no challenge ever shows up without you also having the capacity to withstand it. So, the bottom line of this whole second section is this: no struggle goes on forever. No pressure you face is truly, objectively unbearable, even when it sure feels that way. There is always a ceiling. Okay, so that brings us to the third and maybe the most practical part of the whole verse. If the struggle is common and it has a limit, what's next? Well, the text calls it the promised way out. And this is where the whole thing shifts from just being a nice thought to an actual strategy. It's not just about perspective anymore, it's about a provision. The verse guarantees that right alongside every single trial, an exit path is also created. The logic here is really straightforward when you break it down. The condition is just being in a trial. The promise is that something will be actively provided. And what is that provision? A way out. It's a direct cause and effect guarantee. But this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? What does a way out actually mean? Because when we're stuck in something awful, we're usually not seeing a bunch of obvious exit doors. So what does this look like in the real world? And this is such a crucial point. The text is not promising some magic wand that just makes the problem vanish. Poof, it's gone. No. Instead, the way out is a path through the problem. It's the strength or the wisdom or the opportunity you need to just keep going. So let's pull all these threads together. We've got a common struggle, we've got a finite limit, and we've got a promised path through it. So what's the ultimate point of all this? Well, this final section says it all. The goal is endurance. Honestly, the very last word of the verse might be the most important one.
The whole purpose of the way out isn't to escape difficulty entirely, but to be able to endure it. And that single word changes everything.
To endure something means to withstand it, to pass through a challenge without being fundamentally broken by it. So the goal of this whole framework isn't a life with zero problems. It's about building the resilience to face them and come out whole on the other side.
So to wrap it all up, this one single verse gives us 3 huge, powerful reassurances. First, your struggle is universal. You're not alone. Second, your struggle has a limit. It's not infinite. And third, you will always be given a path to get through it. And that kind of leaves us with a final, powerful thought to chew on. If we really believe this framework, that a path forward is always available, even when we can't see it, how does that change the way we look at the challenges we're facing right now? That's a powerful question, and one that's definitely worth thinking about.